Well, it's been a very tense conversations going on, of course, in hotel lobbies around Singapore today and also over the weekend, particularly yesterday and Sunday. Some very tense faces there again, some very small conversations again, whispering in corners, this kind of stuff. So therefore, what you've seen is Japan really almost feel like joining forces with the US in the war of words, rhetoric only, of course, and clearly China again, as its might grows, as it becomes the biggest economy in the world, according to the World Bank. That's the concern again. Clearly, in the South China Sea, the East China Sea, all what's going on again adds to tensions. So the words are these. The US Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel, he gave a speech, and he actually, on China's actions in the South China Sea, he called it destabilizing. Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe, called it, he does not welcome dangerous encounters, obviously. And then again, in reaction to that, we had indeed the Deputy Chief of the PLA in China, of course, the People's Army, that Hagel's speech, he said, and I quote, was full of words of threat and intimidation. So that's clearly, this war of words really has rankled again those senior officers, of course, all the major people who are here. And again, the concern is going forward, what will China do next? If they do so, of course, Japan, who have actually seen their budget increase twice in as many years, significantly concerned about China's actions. Again, that's the thing going forward. So we now have a comment from the Chinese deputy head of the PLA about how they are very concerned and frustrated by what is being said about China.
反对强化针对第三方的
We oppose military alliances flexing their muscles against third parties, resorting to threats or the use of force, or seeking absolute security at the cost of the security of others. We will never allow the fascist and militaristic aggression to stage a comeback.
Also, he was saying that again afterwards that in fact debates and also disputes are only natural and it's not anything to be afraid of. But clearly also Shinzo Abe has been saying that they will provide defence equipment to protect Southeast Asian nations. That's the concern. So yes, Zeb, a very tense time this weekend in Singapore.
Well, John, I'm going to ask you to stand by because we want to bring in Juan Ha. She's our Bloomberg bureau chief in Vietnam, a country, of course, that's feeling more pressure than most in this dispute. What's the latest, Juan, on the China-Vietnam tensions here?
Well, Vietnam, Zeb, has been trying to rally international support against China's placement of the oil rig, the exploration rig, off of Vietnam's central coast. Bloomberg News did have an exclusive interview with Prime Minister Nguyen Tân Dũng here in Hanoi, and he told us he wants to hear a stronger voice from the U.S. in the region. He told us he wants to see more practical, more effective contributions from the U.S. to aid in the region's stability. So it's very likely that he would welcome U.S. Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel's comments in Singapore, in which Hagel specifically cited the exploration rig off of Vietnam's coast as one recent example of China's actions that's destabilizing for the region, as John has talked about. We also heard Shinzo Abe, also in Singapore, say that he supports Vietnam and China in its disputes against China. I'm sorry, that he supports Vietnam and the Philippines in its dispute against China. And so the question on many people's minds these days is, will Vietnam file legal action against China? We got a chance to ask Prime Minister Dũng that in our interview, and here's what he had to say.
Vietnam will use all possible peaceful measures to defend and protect our sacred sovereignty over the sea, including legal actions. About two-thirds of global marine trade is transported through this marine route on the EC, so any irresponsible action that triggers a clash here will interrupt this huge global trade flow.
That was Prime Minister Nguyen Tân Dũng speaking to Bloomberg News in an exclusive interview. Now, when it comes to filing legal action against China, the Prime Minister says it's just a matter of when. We also heard him talk about the importance of the South China Sea, which Vietnam calls the EC, in facilitating international trade. The analysts say there's a lot weighing on Vietnam in this decision, one of which is the possible economic retaliation by China as a consequence of it filing legal action. In our interview with him, the Prime Minister Dũng also talked about that Vietnam has seen some impact to certain sectors of the Vietnamese economy because of this dispute. He says that Vietnam has addressed that with solutions to mitigate the impact there. But overall, lots of things for Vietnam to weigh. And on top of that, you've got Vietnamese citizens who say that they really want to see a stronger response from their country when it comes to China. They really want Vietnam to stand up against China. So analysts say Vietnam doesn't have a whole lot of options right now, and increasingly there's a lot of pressure on Vietnam to file legal action.